Good evening. I'm Kelda Yoon. We begin tonight with breaking news. Prominent Canadian businessman and one of the country's wealthiest people, Frank Stronach, was arrested tonight in Peel, charged with multiple sexual offenses, including rape and forcible confinement. The alleged incidents spanning decades. Tyler Cheese brings us the latest.
91-year-old billionaire Frank Stronach is facing 5 offenses: 2 counts of sexual assault, forcible confinement, indecent assault on a female, and rape. In a statement from Peel Police Friday evening, it's alleged the sexual assaults span from the 1980s right up to last year. On a phone call with CBC Toronto, Stronach's lawyer Brian Greenspan provided his response to the charges.
Mr. Stronach categorically denies the allegations of impropriety which have been brought against him. He looks forward to the opportunity to fully respond to the charges and to maintain his legacy, both as a philanthropist and as an icon of the Canadian business community.
Stronach founded the company that would become Magna International in Toronto in the 1950s. Over time, the auto parts manufacturer would become one of Canada's largest companies. The multinational giant has been headquartered in Aurora since 1998. A statement provided by a spokesperson from Magna says the company has no knowledge of the investigation or the allegations that have been raised beyond what has been reported in the media. Mr. Stronach has had no affiliation with Magna since relinquishing control in 2010. Stronach currently serves as the founder and chairman of Stronach International and as executive in residence at the University of Toronto Scarborough. He's also the father of former MP Belinda Stronach and was named to the Order of Canada in 1999. Police have confirmed that Stronach was arrested in Peel Region on Friday and will appear in a Brampton court on July 8th. They also say there is more than one alleged victim in this case, but they weren't able to confirm an exact number. Tyler Cheese, CBC News, Toronto.
5 days after a deadly mass shooting in Etobicoke that killed 2 people and injured 3 others, people across the country today recognizing the National Day Against Gun Violence. Events were held around the city to raise awareness about the issue. Greg Ross has more from a community walk in Scarborough.
We're at the Birkdale Community Centre. You can see people have gathered here behind me. We've got some police officers here. We've got a lot of community members. This was organized by Raptors Community Ambassador Jamal McGlure and his foundation. They've invited people from the community to come join in on this walk. Now, people are wearing white to show their solidarity. It's hard to see through the umbrellas, but there are a lot of people wearing white T-shirts right now. And earlier we were able to talk to McGlure just about the gun violence in this community and how it's impacted him.
Lost my brother in 2001 due to gun violence. It's still unsolved. So for me, this is an opportunity to bring awareness not only to what's happening currently, but what has happened throughout the course of time in this town. This town is too beautiful of a city and our country to be stained by unnecessary violence.
Yeah, obviously, this hits really close to home for McGlure. This National Day Against Gun Violence comes less than a week after 3 seemingly random shootings in North Etobicoke, including that mass shooting at North Albion Collegiate, where 2 people ended up dying. 3 others were injured. Today, some students from the school spoke out and talked about how this gun violence is impacting them. For some at North Albion Collegiate, gun violence in their neighborhood is becoming all too familiar.
News about violence in our neighborhood is a regular thing to hear about, although it should never be normalized.
Students here say the school should be a safe place to learn, but gun violence is making that difficult, especially with the school being closed down earlier this week as police investigated Sunday's deadly shooting there.
My grades are already up and down, and when school gets canceled, all the tests, activities, and projects get pushed back days, so it makes it much harder for me to get higher marks, which ultimately affects my future path and career.
The reality that something we hear about on the news can happen to any of us in places that we're supposed to be safe.
These students were joined by the Toronto Youth Cabinet, which is calling on the city to do more. They say the city needs to invest in programs that steer youth away from gun violence, like employment programs for young people and mental health support.
It's time to break the cycle of violence, to uplift our young people, and to create a community where every child feels valued, supported, and empowered to reach their full potential.
According to statistics from Toronto Police, we've already seen more shootings this year than in the first 5 months of any of the previous 4 years. But that hasn't necessarily resulted in more deaths or injuries. Those numbers are comparable to the stats we've seen since 2020.
Stop!
In Regent Park today, mothers who have lost children to gun violence marched in solidarity. This woman who lost her son says the impacts are far-reaching.
It really affects siblings, aunts, uncles, grandparents, even community members. You know, it's really tragic and it really affects long-term.
At another gun violence event today, Mayor Chow said she is listening, and she says the city is working to expand programs that not only combat gun violence, but also help make communities safer.
As we remember those victims, we make and renew our commitment to create a city which is a safe place where everyone feels they belong.
Now, we talked about the fears in that North Etobicoke community. The police are still looking for suspects in those 3 shootings that happened there last weekend. Kelda?
Right. Thanks so much, Greg. It came down to the 11th hour last night. Transit workers had prepared to walk off the job, but shortly before the midnight strike deadline, the workers' union and the TTC announced a deal had been reached between the two sides, averting a shutdown of the transit system to the relief of many commuters. Municipal Affairs reporter Sean Jeffords has more.
Late Thursday night, and buses were still rolling on Toronto streets. All because of an 11th hour agreement staving off what would have been a crippling transit strike. After months of tense talks, the TTC reached a tentative 3-year contract with 12,000 frontline workers.
Shortly after 11:30 this evening, we got a phone call from the union advising us that we have a tentative agreement on a contract and we've averted a strike. This is a good deal for the city and our hard-working employees.
In the days leading up to the deadline, the outcome was anything but certain. The president of the Amalgamated Transit Union 113 had warned workers were ready to walk off the job if its positions weren't taken seriously. Wages, benefits, and job security were all still issues late Thursday. But then the tone changed and progress was made.
I think we've started the road for our members to get the value that they deserve and they're entitled to get. I think we've started to get the protections that we need to protect not just transit workers, protect transit.
But Alfred slammed the TTC for delaying an agreement and putting commuters through the uncertainty.
The only reason this deal took as long as it did is completely upon the TTC. They could have brought the resources to the table. They were confident all along that a deal was there. Well, guess what? You should have brought that to the bargaining table to make sure this was alleviated earlier. We've always been there with the exact same principles and offers and proposals. Nothing has changed. They are the ones that finally stepped up. They had the confidence this could get done, then they should have brought it earlier.
TTC Chair Jamal Myers says city councillors were feeling pressure to ensure the deal got done.
I mean, every single councillor has been getting a lot of emails, concerns from residents, businesses, organizations, making sure that, the TTC was functioning. So we're all breathing a big sigh of relief.
The financial terms are not yet known, but Mayor Olivia Chow stressed the deal is good for the city despite its cost. The economic loss of a strike would have outweighed the cost of the agreement.
It's a deal, it's a good deal for the city and for the TTC workers and for TTC itself.
The TTC is just one of a number of unions the city is negotiating with this year. Police, fire, and the city's indoor and outdoor workers are all seeking new contracts. The city's prepared for those talks, the mayor says.
A good fiscal responsible way to do a budget is to anticipate all possible expenses.
The tentative TTC agreement will still need to be approved by the agency's board, and workers must also ratify the deal. Sean Jeffords, CBC News, Toronto.
The deadline for a possible strike by thousands of Canada's border workers has been pushed to next Wednesday. Meantime, mediation efforts on a new contract will continue. The workers were set to strike as of 4 p.m. Eastern today. The union says key issues include pay parity with other law enforcement agencies, remote work options, and pension benefits. 90% of Canada Border Services agency workers cannot technically strike because they're deemed essential workers, but they can work to rule, which could cause delays at border crossings and airports. Welcome back. Toronto Public Health is advising people to protect themselves against a life-threatening bacterial infection. As so far this year, there have been more than a dozen cases of severe meningitis, the highest number of cases in over 2 decades. Del Manukduk has the story.
Felt the most pain I've ever felt in my life, and this could have easily been prevented with one quick vaccine.
Megan Plamondon ended up in the hospital for 10 days last November after being diagnosed with a rare but life-threatening form of bacterial meningitis.
Honestly, I was shocked. I mean, meningitis is very, very rare, and it's something I hadn't really considered before, to be honest.
The Queen's University student was the first of 3 cases in the Kingston area that prompted a public health warning. At least one other student was also infected, though the cases were never connected. Now, Toronto Public Health is also sounding the alarm.
Toronto Public Health has had now 13 cases of invasive meningococcal disease reported to our health unit. And typically we will expect to see 6 cases a year. And so this is well above what we would expect to see.
Symptoms may start between 2 and 10 days.
They can include fevers, headaches, stiff neck, increased sensitivity to light, and in some cases, seizures and a quickly spreading rash.
We live in a city of millions of people, and they're talking about 13 cases. Hey, there's still more cases than we've seen in the past, and it's important to recognize this. And it's just important that people recognize that there are steps you can take to reduce the risk of getting this, rare but very devastating infection.
On average, there are almost 200 cases of IMD in the country per year, according to Health Canada. Up to 10% of people infected die. Of the 13 reported cases in Toronto this year, there have been 2 deaths.
If people come to medical care early, we can certainly treat this infection with conventional antibiotics.
IMD is generally transmitted through saliva and close contact. With the upcoming Pride March and various supporting events, TPH is advising people to be up to date with their vaccines. The cases in the city are among both those who have and have not traveled outside of Canada. TPH notes if anyone is traveling this month to the annual pilgrimage Hajj in Saudi Arabia to get jabbed. It's mandatory to enter the country there. Most people already have 2 different vaccines that are typically given at 12 months old and in grade 7. Those vaccines cover 4 of the 5 types of bacteria that lead to meningitis, not for the rare 5th bacteria that Plamondon got. Unlike the free ones that TPH is offering, the B bacteria one usually costs money and isn't routinely recommended.
I was kind of frustrated with myself that I didn't do the research into getting this vaccine. And now I'm passionate about speaking out about it because it's such a preventable infection.
Dale Manukduk, CBC News, Toronto.
There's relief for some Ontario families tonight. Liens that had been placed against their property are being wiped away. In some cases, it means they are no longer on the hook for hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's all because of new legislation cracking down on scams targeting seniors. Queen's Park reporter Lorena Redekop explains.
Tears of joy, tears of relief, tears of happiness.
It's taken years to get here for Melissa Irons and her family. She says they discovered 10 liens against her father-in-law Carl Hoffman's home, adding up to $75,000. She first told their story to CBC Marketplace last year.
So here's a Nest thermostat that was installed.
Does Carl know how to use it?
Absolutely not.
Salespeople had taken advantage of him, installing equipment, doing renovations. The family says Hoffman didn't have the capacity to make decisions after an aneurysm many years earlier.
Speaker, this is a momentous day.
This week, all the parties at Queen's Park came together, fast-tracking the paperwork and legislation to ban companies from these notices of security interest, as they're called, or NOSIs.
The deception and organized criminal activity associated with it was unacceptable.
We're not waiting time, years, months, immediately, like today. All of those will be gone off of Carl's house.
And it's not just her family.
It's been amazing. We've received countless calls from families and victims, over the past 12 hours now. Most of them crying, thanking us.
Her lawyer says there are thousands of victims, adding up to more than $1 billion. The liens gone retroactively. He says it was usually vulnerable seniors who were targeted.
So they'll come in, they'll replace your toilet, and they'll put a $40,000 lien on title, but they're telling these victims that, that all these costs are all covered by government rebates.
The Advocacy Center for the Elderly says it's thrilled with this change, but it warns that people could still be served with claims from the money owing on these contracts. It urges people to seek legal advice if that happens.
For Melissa Irons, her one regret is that this didn't come faster. Her father-in-law, Carl Hoffman, died in January.
He was always quite worried and concerned, that he was putting us through so much. So for finally to see his stress and relief kind of gone would have been really nice to see.
Lorenda Radicomp, CBC News, Toronto.
The Luminato Festival is back for its 18th year. The 10 days of programming will include visual art, theater, music, and dancing across the city. The sudden downpour this afternoon didn't dampen spirits at today's launch event, even leading to a little impromptu singing.
Rain, sleet, the show will go on. Luminato is in the public square.
Tonight we opened David Pico Square with an extraordinary collective of Indigenous artists. It starts at about 6 o'clock until 11 o'clock.
That's the Nathaniel Det Chorale. Their music will be featured throughout the festival. CEO Celia Smith says Luminato will include Canadian and international artists over the next 10 days and plenty of free events, including at David Pico Square this weekend. Tali Ricci spoke with the festival's CEO and a couple of the participating artists to learn more.
So Luminato is an international multidisciplinary arts festival, which means we bring artists from elsewhere. We also are firmly rooted in Toronto, so we work with artists from all over this region and across the country. And we do it for the people of Toronto and also for tourists who come here. So this is David Pico Square, which is at King Street and University by the St. Andrew subway station. And we're doing Luminato in the square starting on Friday until the following Sunday, so for a week and a half. And it's free outdoor music and dance, and we have a main stage and a second stage. We'll be teaching dance lessons. We'll have a visual art extravaganza going on. There's storytelling, there's great food. And the other pieces that are in theater, really wide-ranging prices. So every show you can get for a very reasonable price. And we have a really robust access program, so even if that is an issue, you can call us and we'll work something out, because we want Toronto to show up.
Yeah, super excited. First time in Canada.
Describe to me what they'll see if they come to one of your performances.
What do we see? We see energy, energy, joy, storytelling. The piece is really based in like African street dancing. So African street dancing, there's a lot of characterization, a lot of power in the dance, energy, energetic, and yeah, good vibe all around. So it's African party. So yeah, the idea is for you to at the end of the piece, everybody want to dance, want to join us on stage.
So I'm the founding director of Wedge Curatorial Projects, which is a non-profit arts organization with a mandate to promote and support Black artists both globally and locally. Our Wedge lecture is a long-standing idea of mine. I'm trying to think about our Wedge motto, which is the local meets the global. We have Thelma Golden, who is the director of the Studio Museum in Harlem in New York, and a renowned art world figure, and Julie Crooks, who leads the new Arts of Global Africa and the Diaspora Department at the Art Gallery of Ontario. So together, Thelma and Julie will have a discussion thinking about their careers as Black professionals in the art world.
Why would you encourage people to experience art in public spaces like this throughout the festival?
I think any day, but particularly in these days, we need to have some joy and some community and some seeing each other and hanging out with people. I think it just makes it so much better to be in the city and helps bring all of us back to life.
Here's a sure sign Canadians from coast to coast are getting behind the Edmonton Oilers in the Stanley Cup Finals. A man from Kelowna, British Columbia, is showing his support by mowing a giant Oilers logo on his front lawn. Now, he says he got the idea back in 2006 when the Oilers last made the finals. A friend from Edmonton had sent him a flag to put on his car window, and he decided to supersize it. All right, Colette, you're a Leafs fan. I'm a Leafs fan. Do you think you could switch allegiances just for the finals, cheer on the Oilers?
I have been cheering on the Oilers, so I'm happy to carry on with that. My stepson's a huge fan, so it's all good.
You got to mow a big logo on your front lawn.
Well, maybe not going that far. All right, let's go ahead and show you what to expect. You know, Saturday night, staying in to watch the game may not be the worst thing in terms of looking ahead at what our weather pattern is going to be like. But prior to that, get out and enjoy the day, because it will be good looking in terms of some sunshine. The clouds start to roll in the afternoon on Saturday, and then those showers coming in the evening. So be ready for that. But on the horizon, now this is mid to the end of next week, we actually have some warmer air that's coming our way, but we have to get through a few things prior to that. So just looking at the jet stream and this trough and that upper low that has been so stubborn and causing the instability, especially in eastern Ontario and into Quebec, some heavier rains, but still giving us some of the scattered showers and isolated storms that we've been seeing, while also keeping things cool. And we see that cool dip kind of reinforced. Tomorrow's actually fine, but Sunday into Monday, we dip again below seasonal. But then as we head into next week, towards mid next week, but especially the end, we get some ridging pushing back towards us, and we'll see that temperature starting to pull up as well. So just through the overnight hours tonight, we'll see a lot of that instability pushing eastward. We still have the evening to get through, or late evening as we're approaching midnight here, and getting through a few isolated showers, and then that moves on. And then as you look towards the morning hours, the sunshine all the way back towards southwestern Ontario. But then from there, we see the clouds coming in, showers developing in southwestern Ontario through the afternoon, but it will likely be into the evening before those reach the GTA. The heavier rains are going to be more hugging the north shore of Lake Erie, so from the Niagara region back to kind of south of London towards St. Thomas and through that region. Rainfall amounts generally 5 to 10 millimeters. In the lee of Lake Huron, closer to 15 to 20, and the same thing in that Niagara region where we will see it enhanced a little bit. Your overnight lows, a quick look at those, and I've got to get you into that 5-day forecast so you can see what's to come. Nice tomorrow, a little cooler into Monday, and then that build is coming back to us.
All right, not bad at all. Thanks so much, Colette. And that's our show for you tonight. Thank you so much for watching. Talia will have your next local newscast tomorrow at 6. I will see you back here on Monday. Have a great weekend, everyone.